Today's video has been sponsored by LG Ultra Gear. With the release of Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker, Creative Studio 3 was able to bring a 10-year saga to a close. It was an emotional journey for many people, but of course an MMORPG must continue onward, and Final Fantasy XIV Dawntrail is here to kick off the next 10 years of the game. Not only that, but the game has gone through an impressive graphics update, with visuals that genuinely make the game look impressive, particularly whenever you look at the game's new environments. You'll be blown away at just how gorgeous a lot of these are. In terms of quality of life features, the game has never been more satisfying, and today we got a pretty insane rumor about the future of the game. Something that kind of blew me away, but also I think makes a ton of sense, and something that I think is going to be deeply integral to the future of this game. But first, a word from our sponsor, LG Ultra Gear. If you want the most mind-blowing gaming experience possible, look no further than the LG Ultra Gear. This 39-inch curved OLED monitor brings games to life with unparalleled realism. Featuring an 800 radius curvature, this monitor not only reduces eye strain, but also provides a truly immersive gaming experience. With a lightning-fast 0.03 millisecond response time and a 240Hz refresh rate, you'll enjoy seamless gameplay with minimal input lag. The Ultra Gear's steep and dramatic curve surrounds you in the action, while display HDR True Black 400 and a 1.5 million-to-1 contrast ratio displays rich blacks and very vivid color. Experience the stunning graphics of Final Fantasy XIV Dawntrail like never before. The new visuals make the game look absolutely stunning, and I can't think of a better place to play this new expansion than on this monitor. So if you're playing Final Fantasy XIV Dawntrail and want to have the best experience possible, look no further than LG's Ultra Gear OLED gaming monitors, with a link in the description below. Around 6 years ago, Square Enix signed a strategic partnership deal with Tencent, and thus far, no game has really materialized around it. Originally, they were working on a brand new unannounced Nier mobile game. However, this ended up being cancelled. According to an article on Reuters.com, this is because, quote, Shenzhen-based Tencent cancelled the project that had been in the works for nearly 2 years in part because it struggled to find a compelling monetization model given the expensive development costs and franchise rights, according to the people who were not authorized to speak publicly. Before being cancelled, the project actually made pretty significant progress, and apparently already had a demo that showcased its story and combat. This is even more depressing for Nier fans, I imagine, because they just lost Nier Reincarnation, and yet another Nier mobile game was cancelled. However, you might be wondering, how in the world does this relate back to Final Fantasy XIV? And trust me, it does. But since this is unconfirmed information, I have to hit you with the rumor warning. All rumors are reported purely for the fun of speculation and should be taken with a grain of salt, and you shouldn't believe anything until it's officially confirmed by the source. According to a credible leaker known as Kurikasis, Final Fantasy XIV Mobile is in development. To be clear, this is not a mobile gacha based on Final Fantasy XIV. No, this is said to be the full Final Fantasy XIV game, coming to mobile. Of course, this isn't the first time that Square Enix has attempted this. They've also tried to bring Final Fantasy XI to mobile as well, in a partnership that they have with Nexon. The project known as Final Fantasy XI-R, or Final Fantasy XI Reboot, was going to be a remake of the game in Unreal Engine 4. It featured improved graphics and was going to revitalize the game. Screenshots of the game looked really good, and this was a title that I was incredibly interested in. After all, Final Fantasy XI now is in maintenance mode. This is going to sound completely insane, but due to the way the game was engineered, it actually requires a PS2 dev kit in order to update. Somehow, the game's code is so intertwined to whatever the PS2's library were, there is actually no way to update the game. As a result, Square Enix had to find and keep all of the PS2 dev kits that they could in working optimal condition. Of course, as you can can imagine, you can only do this for so long. PS2 is over 2 decades old now, and also finding people who are able to work with a PS2 dev kit, it's all an absolute nightmare. So doing something about Final Fantasy XI only seems sensible. Project was first announced in 2015 and was slated to be released in 2016. Time went on, however, and we would see screenshots of the project, but in terms of an actual release, nothing ever materialized. Things seemed to get even worse when the COVID-19 pandemic happened, and by the time 2021 rolled around, the project was confirmed to be cancelled, with staff being relocated to other projects. Something that we talked about before is that Square has kind of been behind the curve when it comes to making these full console quality experiences happen on mobile. When you look at things like HoYoverse, that seems to be where the industry is headed. So I think it makes a lot of sense to bring FF14 to mobile, but my god, does it raise a ton of questions about how that is going to work control-wise. Seeing as how 7.0 made a lot of actions easier by mapping them to a single button, I imagine for a hypothetical mobile version of the game that would serve pretty well, and allow for significantly less screen clutter. After all, MMOs have a lot going on screen. There's your chat, there's the hotbar, there's your minimap, and really, provided this rumor is true, I would just be surprised that they managed to find a way to make all of that clutter work on a mobile phone. Assuming this rumor is true and they want this to work, the UI is going to have to be immaculate. But all of this being said, I cannot imagine anything that would boost the game's popularity even more than it's already at, than putting it on mobile devices and allowing anyone to hop in and enjoy the game. That is one way to ensure that the game is going to have another successful decade of life and beyond. And that's not all for Final Fantasy news today. Final Fantasy XIV obsessed Hironobu Sakaguchi, the father of the series. He is currently working on releasing Fantasian for multiple platforms, and I am tremendously excited for this. And the best part is that he's working directly with Square Enix in order to make it happen. This has led some people to believe that potentially he could work on Final Fantasy again, but a recent interview with Bloomberg seems to shut that down, with the article saying, "What's next then?" Sakaguchi said that despite the newfound partnership, he has no interest in revisiting Final Fantasy or any of his old franchises, in part because he switched to a consumer rather than a creator, and doesn't want a glimpse at how the sausage is made. "If I take on the Final Fantasy brand again, I don't know if I'll genuinely be able to enjoy Final Fantasy XIV as much," he said. However, this is where the knife got twisted into my heart. The article continuing saying, Sakaguchi also said he had no interest in bringing older games such as Lost Odyssey and Blue Dragon to modern platforms, despite recent rumors suggesting otherwise. He does want to find a way to revive strategy game Terra Battle, which was released for phones in 2014, but is no longer playable. I would love to see maybe Terra Battle become its own console game, rather than being something that's stuck on mobile. A reboot of Terra Battle in that fashion would be awesome to see. However, no Lost Odyssey remaster is something that I'll never recover from. It's a shame to me that almost 2 decades later, the game is still locked exclusively to Xbox. And all I want is to be able to play this game on PC. Sakaguchi, I am begging you to reconsider. This being said, Sakaguchi continues to be the Hayao Miyazaki of video games, with him constantly saying that he's going to retire and then him not retiring. Mistwalker has recently trademarked Fantasian Dark Edge, which could be a sequel to the Fantasian series. Now I think this is an awesome idea. Fantasian is so PS1 core. It's the type of game that is going to appeal directly to anyone who grew up with Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9. And I think a lot of people still love and crave that style of Final Fantasy. We have things like Bravely Default and Octopath Traveler for people who truly miss that classic 2D style Final Fantasy. So I really think that it's important to also create something that fills the void for what the early 3D era Final Fantasies were. And I think if they were to lean into making Fantasian its own series, ultimately, this is what I want to see from Fantasian, a series sort of like Final Fantasy that manages to reboot itself each time, however, maintains the PS1 pre-rendered background style. But what do you guys think about the Final Fantasy XIV mobile rumors? And do you also want to see Fantasian become its own series and fill the void of the PS1 era Final Fantasy? Let me know in the comments below. And be sure to check out the LG Ultra Gear, link in the description and pinned comment below.